This post was made in the r/RBI subreddit and was created pretty recently, just 2 weeks at the time of this recording. OP is named Primary Canary 2317 and the post is titled, "I'm pretty sure there's a serial killer in my tiny county." Okay, so as the title says, I'm pretty sure there's a serial killer in little tiny Berkshire County, Massachusetts. Since March of 2022, there have been 4 missing women who have gone missing after hiking in a rural area of Berkshire County. 3 out of the 4 bodies were found a few months later. This 4th one just went missing the other day, March 12th, 2024, and I bet her body will be found within the next 3 months. All 4 of these women have similarities in looks and age and in the way they had disappeared. Once the other 3 bodies were found, all news coverage just stopped on it. It's not like there's a lot of news coverage around here anyways, but still. I dug back a little further to 2017 and found a few more missing women whose bodies were found months later. Either I watched too many crime documentaries or something is not right. Update, April 16th, 2024. The 4th lady's body was just found. The link OP shared takes us to a short article that states the victim's name was 𝓣𝓗 𝓣𝓗. As for the other victims, the first was named Paula Kelsey, who was 78 years old. She was last seen in October of 2021 and was later found in Cheshire, Massachusetts. Officials also shared that Paula had dementia, which led to her becoming confused while she was on a walk. The second victim was named Megan Marone, aged 42. She was found in Lee, also located in Massachusetts. Megan was last seen on Sunday, March 27th, 2022 after leaving a hotel. Nearly half a year after disappearing, several of her belongings were located. These included her laptop and cell phone. Then in September of the same year, Megan's skull was also found. The third name tied to these cases is Susan Lockwood, aged 66. She was found in Lenox, Massachusetts and was last seen in October of 2023. Susan's remains were discovered by a hiker at the bottom of a cliff in February of 2024. The hiker's dog had strayed off trail and when the hiker went to follow, they found a boot with what they believed to be human remains. Authorities were called and after conducting a larger search over the next few days, more remains were found. Through the use of dental records, the evidence was confirmed to have belonged to Susan Lockwood. So for this entry, I actually only found a comment referencing it and not the original post. And normally if I can't find the original post, I wouldn't bother including it in the iceberg, but this one was just really weird, so I'm including it. The comment was under a r/Ask Reddit post asking users for the most disturbing post, comment, or thread they've seen on the site. User Limesky said the following in September of 2022. There was a post by a teenage girl who walked in on her parents having on the living room couch. Her mom was wearing the girl's favorite dress and looked like she was role-playing the daughter. The girl ran out and stayed over with a friend. Later, the mother said that yes, she and the dad were role-playing that the mother was the daughter having with the father. They had been doing it for some time and the mom had worn 3 of the daughter's dresses and a couple of pajama sets. But it was okay because the mom put them in the laundry afterwards. As of the post, the girl had seen her mom only that once and not the father at all and had moved in with her friend's family. There was so much wrong there. Another user by the name 𝓣𝓗 𝓝𝓐𝓢𝓣𝓨 responded with, "Sometimes I feel like it's okay to kink shame some people." And I'd kind of have to agree here. This is just so weird. Okay, so after recording all of that, I actually found the original. It was created in July of the same year, so 2022. And it seems like it was posted in the relationship advice subreddit. The post was titled, "I walked in on my mom, 44, teasing my dad, 46, while wearing one of my dresses." I know it sounds like something out of one of those really bad Netflix movies, but it's unfortunately for me true. I was over at a friend's house for most of the day yesterday and I wasn't supposed to be coming home until later in the evening. This is super common for me right now. My friend has a pool and stuff, so I've been at her house a lot since school ended a few weeks ago. Mid-afternoon, we decided to go and just drive around, then wanted to go shopping. I didn't bring my money with me. I keep my savings and cash in this little jar so I don't spend it so impulsively. We decided to go to my house to grab some cash on the way to the mall. When we got there, my friend waited in the car because I was only going to be a couple of minutes. When I walked into my house though, my parents were on the couch. I don't want to be too overly graphic about what was going on, but my mom was on my dad's lap teasing him, and it was very clear that they were about to have. They both froze when they saw me, totally expected because they didn't plan on being interrupted at all. I was frozen too. Then after a couple of seconds, I realized my mom was literally wearing one of my favorite dresses. Like, I wear it all the time. Not even like it's really revealing or anything, just a normal summer dress. We were all looking at each other in shock for a few seconds before my mom just said, "I'm so sorry, sweetie." I ran back out of the house and was crying by the time I made it to my friend's car. I started explaining to her what I had just seen and she was calming me down, but then my mother came out of the house after me, literally still wearing my dress. I told my friend to drive away before she got to the car and we went back to her house. We didn't give her parents any details about what had happened, just that I had family drama. I've been friends with her since way back, so they told me I could sleep at their house for a couple of days until I figured things out. I barely slept last night at all. Every time I close my eyes, it's like I see it in my head. My mom's called me a bunch of times, but I only texted her back to let her know where I am and told her I need time before I'm ready to talk to them. She replied again, apologizing, and wants me to come home today to talk to them. I don't think I can do that yet. Even typing this out, I've started shaking with nerves about it. What do I do now? I've never felt unsafe in my house before at all, but I also don't know if I'm comfortable being around my parents now that I know that they're literally pretending she's me. I'm so grossed out, and I think I want to burn every piece of clothing I've ever owned. TLDR, I came home unexpectedly and walked in on my mom and dad about to have while my mom was wearing one of my favorite dresses. I really didn't want to write anything erotic about my parents on here, but since it's been suggested that they might not have been about to have sex a couple of times over messages and stuff, here goes. The top portion of the dress was pulled down and they were doing stuff. If they weren't about to have sex, they were at least being. Edit 2. I am not upset at all that my parents were having. It's the fact that they were about to have sex while my mom was wearing one of my favorite dresses. She and I never share clothes, and I've been trying to rationalize this some other way, but I don't see why she would have gone into my room and gotten that dress unless it was for what I interrupted them doing. If you're like the millions of people around the world that has caffeine in their daily life, check out partner of the channel, 𝓤𝓤𝓔. They have a wide array of amazing flavors, and each serving is less than 40 cents with my code DLAM, which gives you 10% off your order. Some of my personal favorites are titty milk and guacamole gamer fart. It also supports the channel, so if you're interested, check out the first link in the description. Now back to the video. This post was created in the r/RBI subreddit in April of 2021 on a throwaway account named Dad Might Not Be a Murder. The title of the post is "My Dad Might Not Be Responsible for a Murder" from 2015. Bear with me as I recount this to the best of my ability. I have to remain somewhat vague in some of the details in order to protect my anonymity. However, I will do my best to be as clear as possible about the series of events. Okay, in September of 2015, my dad's girlfriend Sherry started an affair with one of his friends, Billy. Billy and my dad had been friends since high school and I knew him well. He was nerdy and kind of weird, but he was nice enough. My dad, not surprisingly, was pretty upset about the affair, but he and Sherry were already having relationship issues, and I think he was happy to find a reason to leave her officially. I know he had a few relatively cordial run-ins with Sherry and Billy as they lived in the same town, but he had mostly cut them both off entirely. During this time, Sherry moved to a new house only a few streets from my dad. By Thanksgiving of 2015, my dad was roughing it a little. I think he was still kind of bummed about the affair, but he had recently been in a car accident resulting in him losing his job due to a back injury. So additionally, he was having some money issues pending a lawsuit settlement he was waiting on. By December, he was back on the mend and in pretty good spirits. We were very close and spent a lot of time together hanging out or going to bars and concerts. At the beginning of December at 8 AM, my dad called me at work. We only spoke for about 10 minutes, but he was in a great mood. We had some laughs and made plans to hang out for the weekend. He mentioned very briefly that Sherry had called him about an hour earlier, but he ignored the call. I barely even remember him saying it. I got home from work that night and my phone rang. It was a family friend calling to tell me that my dad was dead, but she didn't have any other details. I was totally shocked. I had no idea what was going on, and I was in a instant denial because we just made plans. I had a million things running through my head. Car accidents, heart attack, etc. A few moments later, my dad's two brothers and my grandmother knock on my door. It was true, and my dad was dead. However, the biggest shock was that Sherry was also dead, a murder. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. To add insult to injury, Billy was the one who found their bodies at Sherry's house and was currently being interviewed by police. I took a call from one of the investigators on the scene. He mentioned that it was a quote-unquote cut and dry case. My dad was a hunter, so I was curious about the murder weapon. To my surprise, it was a small gauge handgun. But it wasn't my dad's, it was Sherry's. Odd, but okay. During this call, and I will never understand why he found these details necessary, but he told me that my dad and Sherry had consensual sex prior to their deaths. He also told me that there was a gap in time between the deaths. That likely my dad had killed Sherry, had instant regret, paced/considered his options, and ultimately decided to take his own life. As I'm listening to this, I just can't wrap my mind around any of it because it was just so out of character for my dad. And not in a I don't believe my dad could do something like this kind of way, like a real sincere confusion. First off, he wasn't that depressed about the affair. They had already been split up for 3 months at this point, and he was seemingly pretty happy in the wake of it all. Secondly, as I mentioned before, Sherry was living in a new house. My dad didn't know this house at all, so why and how would he have ended up with her gun in her house? He had his own guns. Thirdly, I knew she had called him that morning and he ignored her call. It doesn't feel like someone desperate to kill another person would pass up an opportunity for an interaction with that person. None of it made sense. But I had come to terms with the information I was given and trust that the police department knew what they were doing. Not to mention, I had a funeral to plan and some deep grieving to do. A few days later, I made the trip over to my dad's house to collect his belongings and settle his affairs. His house was shockingly fully on. Like lights on, TV on, cat not fed, morning coffee still on the coffee table, back door unlocked, etc. It was like he raced out the door really quick with full intentions on being right back. This was not the home of someone who left with the intention of never returning. I know mental illness can and will do strange things to people, but if nothing else, he would never have let his cat go hungry. Yet another red flag in my mind, but I continued forth. Eventually, I was given some of his belongings from the scene of the crime by police, and my boyfriend decided to go through his phone to see if there were any signs of what might have occurred. We found that after I spoke with him, he did end up answering a call from Sherry, which was around 11 seconds long. But we also found a slew of really weird text messages. None of the texts appeared to have been from my dad because 1, he had terrible grammar, and 2, he didn't even know how to text. I never received a text from my dad my entire life. He had a flip phone with T9 in 2015, for God's sake. So many people reached out to me saying, this doesn't feel right, and I agreed. I didn't feel like any of it felt right, but I had nothing of any real substance other than gut instinct to guide me, which is not enough when dealing with police or investigators. At one point, I literally had to ask people to just stop telling me that they thought this was somehow a setup because I couldn't do anything about it, and I was starting to lose sleep over it. I was scared to death of turning into one of those people who obsess over something out of sheer denial. No one was going to take my plight seriously, and I already knew that I would be overlooked and disregarded. So for the last 5 years, I have done nothing but stress in silence, until now. This past Friday, I took a call from someone very close to my dad's friend group urging me to push harder into reopening my dad's case. Recently, it has come to light that Billy is apparently a master con artist and a fraud. I guess Sherry is one of 3 girlfriends that Billy has quote-unquote found dead since 2010. This is where I need your help, Reddit. Here is the information I was given. At some point prior to my dad and Sherry's death, Billy was dating a woman whom had recently come into money. Shortly after, this woman was found dead at the bottom of her stairs. Around the time that Billy started his affair with Sherry, she had recently inherited between $500,000 to $800,000 from her father passing away. Billy's current girlfriend has had organ failure since last year. She recently inherited a large sum of money, and Billy again found her dead last Tuesday. Now, I know she was already sick, but the rumor is that she pleaded for medical help for days, and I guess he just basically let her suffer. I also found out that Billy took photos of my dad and Sherry's bodies before he bothered to call police. Why? He later showed these photos to his young daughter, double why. He also told the story of how he found their bodies numerous times to the same person, yet the story has been told in 3 different ways. Did he take the photos as some sick trophy, or did he take the photos to be able to maintain his narrative? Upon learning this information, I kept thinking, but why would he have had to kill my dad in order to steal Sherry's money? And then it finally dawned on me today that it was so my dad could be the scapegoat. He had to use my dad to portray a crime of passion scene so he could pretend to be a victim in the whole thing. Even though he was interviewed by police, it was just an interview, not an interrogation. The investigator said it was a cut and dry case. They would have no motive to interrogate him because as far as they could tell, the murderer was dead already. However, I do know there was about an hour in his timeline that day that went unaccounted for. Billy has a very high IQ. I don't think he would have been strong enough to fight my dad in hand-to-hand combat, but I very much believe he could have easily outsmarted him. My current conspiracy theory is that Billy went to Sherry's house that morning before work, had consensual with her, killed her, then used her phone to call my dad, which was the 7 a.m. call. My dad didn't answer the call, and Billy went to work to maintain his story. I think Billy then used his lunch break, the unaccounted for hour and also almost identical time of my dad's death, to go back to Sherry's house, where he used her phone to call my dad again. This is the 11-second call that my dad did answer that caused him to race over to Sherry's house, leaving his house in the state I found it in 2 days later. I think he tricked my dad into coming to Sherry's, where he would be caught off guard and out of his element for an attack. I also think this could be where the gap in their deaths could be. I think Billy went back to work for the rest of the day and then found my dad and Sherry, where he took the photos and then called police. Here is my problem. I have no idea what to do. I don't know how to reopen a closed case. I don't have any direction on who to speak with. I have tried the police department who handled my dad's case, the local FBI, and the state attorney general, and no one can even tell me who could help me with this. Do I need a private investigator? Do I need an attorney? Is this worth looking into at all? I would love to clear my dad's name and take this terrible weight off of my family's shoulders once and for all. I am also fully prepared to accept that I could be wrong, but now I have to know. Any help is greatly appreciated. Edit 1. Some people have asked how Billy would have been able to financially gain from any of these women, considering he wasn't married to any of them. I do not know any intimate details of the woman who was found at the bottom of the stairs other than that she had recently come into money and that he was the one who found her. I don't know her name or how he would have benefited from her monetarily dead or alive. However, even though there is no current confirmation of whether he did or he didn't gain from her, she is still one of 3 women he has found dead. In regards to Sherry, she was never married and never had children, so there was no one to account for her finances other than her. She was also a little flighty, and I can see him being able to easily manipulate her or just flat out steal from her openly without her noticing right away. In regards to the most recent dead girlfriend, there is actual proof that he stole at least $10,000 from her leading up to her death. Edit 2. After the recommendations of everyone, which by the way, thank you all, I have taken a few additional measures since yesterday. I have filed for the FOIA regarding all documents that I am able to obtain, and I have also reached out via email personally to the chief and deputy chief of the police department who handled the case. This one is just disgusting, and it has probably the worst picture I've seen in a very long time. I'm going to be showing you all a very censored version of it because I would very much like to keep my channel the way it is. This post was made in the r/WTF subreddit by user 𝓣𝓗 in 2012. It's titled, "You thought the shoebox was bad? My cousin's neighbor has been shooting it into these boxers for 7 years. The smell was horrendous. If you're a sadist and want to burn your eyes, feel free to search for the image." The actual post didn't have any sort of text with it besides the title. It just had that one image, which I believe now is deleted from the original post. One comment under the thread made me spit. I thought it was hilarious. This one guy said, "Seriously, stop staring and have a taste for F's sake." This next post was created in 2023 in the r/RBI subreddit by user OKP4759. It's titled, "An old teacher is obsessed with me and it's ruining my life." This is kinda a long story, but I'll try my best to keep it short. When I was young, I attended a private childcare facility where we had 4 teachers and 1 student teacher called Charles, who always took a special interest in the girls. Charles was in his 20s but would always ask what me and my friends would be doing over the weekend. I can always remember telling him, then just happening to see him there while I was there. At the time, I was like 4 or 5, so I didn't think much of it. This pattern, however, continued into my next school. I began my primary school years, or elementary in America, I believe, and a few months later, Charles was employed at my school as a groundsman. He would speak to me every break, always asking me stuff, and during class times, he would watch me through the classroom windows. When I got to about the age of 10, he began asking weirder questions that made me avoid him altogether. Or, do you wear a trainer bra or not? Basically just really creepy stuff to be asking a 10-year-old. Then the same thing followed me through high school. He got a job as a teacher's aide to assist a non-verbal girl in my class. This affected me so much around the age of 15 to 16 that I actually dropped out of high school. Even then, he works in a neighbor's garden most days that I am at home alone. I've been on antipsychotic medication for 19 months now, and I thought it might help with the situation with Charles, but it hasn't. This is one thing that I'm convinced isn't in my head. He's watching from across the road as I type this. I just want advice on what to do. I'm home alone most days, and it's starting to really scare me as he's tried opening doors to my house without an invitation before. Reddit, what should I do? Side note, I am currently 17, so I'm unable to move out. Plus, I've spoken to police, but they've said that they don't have any evidence to work with and dismissed my claims due to my quote-unquote mental state. Thank you for all the advice. I will be meeting with my therapist tomorrow and will bring it up. I've also ordered cameras to put around my house, and I've messaged friends who know of Charles to confirm that they have in fact interacted with him. If my therapist believes that this is all real, I'll make another police report and tell all this to my grandparents. I've begun my journal and will take pictures tomorrow. Thank you so much for the support. I'm logging off for the night, but will keep you all updated on how tomorrow goes. Today, I managed to get some images of Charles looking into my house through our glass windows. I've shown them to my therapist, and he's asked that I resume taking pictures like these and said he will help me with yet another police report, including my evidence, next week once I gain more images. I have also had confirmation from 5 childhood friends that Charles is indeed real, as they remember him too. Once again, thank you for the advice and support. We'll post an update if anything else changes. I'm doing my best to keep up with questions in the comments too. According to OP, she was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia in the past. She shared that information in response to this comment made by 𝓣𝓗𝓔 𝓝𝓐𝓢𝓣𝓨. I work with people with psychosis. I will preface by saying that I believe you, because that's always the safer thing to do. But I do have an unfortunate anecdote about a former client who had delusions about being stalked. I had a client who retroactively believed that someone he met in childhood was currently stalking him, and retroactively believed that the guy was stalking him from childhood. He had memories of the guy getting various jobs in his school to stalk him, working in the cafeteria, as a coach, a teacher, etc. I'm saying this because it can happen to have retroactive memories that fit into a delusion. In adulthood, the client believed that the guy was always nearby, sometimes with justification that the stalker was working in the nearby shops. The client had schizophrenia. I don't know what your diagnosis is. I would definitely talk to your therapist just in case. Spare no details. It's entirely possible this is real, but unfortunately also entirely possible it's not. However, I will absolutely treat it as real because it's the safer thing to do. I know you don't want to stress your grandparents, but if you're being stalked, they absolutely should know. They care about you and your safety first of all. Second, their safety is also at risk. You never know what a stalker will do. Some just observe, but others can turn to violence to physically get the object of their obsession or to get their attention. Third, this is really impacting you. It's unlikely that they just wouldn't notice the stress you're under. You absolutely need clear video of his face and identifying vehicles. Preferably not only at home, if you can also record him out and about, such as at your workplace. His voice won't be enough for police to ID him or confirm he's stalking you. When does he talk to you these days? Getting video of a doorknob rattling without clear video of him doing it also won't mean anything to the police. I will be honest, your resistance to getting clear video comes across to me as fear fear of being wrong and feeling or looking crazy. You need to know what's happening, one way or another. If you're wrong and it's psychosis, you need to know so you can be treated properly. If it's real and you're being stalked, you need to know so it can be addressed properly to keep you safe. This post was created in 2019 in the r/nuclear revenge subreddit by user Proud Mama Bear. It's titled, "You let him rape us, I set you up." Now, OP did make an edit that they added at the very beginning after the post went live, so I'll be reading the edit at the very end. First, this is a throwaway account. I will not be replying to comments. Take this as you will. This is my story of my revenge against my mother and First, our father passed away 4 years before all this started. Car crash. Maybe our lives would have been better if he hadn't died that day. Also, before I get into this, one thing you should know is, before this man came into our lives, our mother was amazing. She was loving, supportive, and put us above everything. But she would soon replace us with her new man and her new habits. When I was around 9 and my little sister 7, our mom started dating this man. Let's call him POS. POS was tall and weighed about 250 pounds. He had oily, brown hair and a face filled with sores. I didn't like him from the start. He made me uncomfortable, to say the least. A few months after they started dating, POS moved into our house. Everything was okay for the first few weeks, I guess. Then my mom started to act funny, staying up all night, not cooking us lunch or supper, not cleaning, snapping at us for no reason, and she started hitting us. Our lives had been turned upside down by this man so quickly. Then one night he came into my bedroom, held me down, and me. I was screaming and crying for my mom, begging her to come help me, to come save me, please. And then I see her, standing in the door watching him me. My mom was just letting him do this to me. She was just watching like she was looking at a TV or something. When he finished and climbed off of me, he walked up to my mom, kissed her, and walked away with her. My mom just left me, crying and bleeding. I was just and she allowed it to happen. Not long after they walked out, I hear them having in the living room. It was my 10th birthday. Happy birthday to me. A couple of nights later, I hear my little sister crying. I get out of the bed to find my mom standing in her doorway. I run to the room to try to help her, and my mom sees me. She backhands me across the face, making me slam against the hallway wall. I can hear my sister crying and begging, with no one coming to help her. That was the day I started hating my mother. This went on for 3 years. I didn't know at the beginning, but soon found out. POS had gotten my mom using that, and POS were the only important things in her life. My sister and I were nothing more than his play toys. I soon started noticing them arguing more and more about who got more hits. This one was stashing from the other one, and you smoked the last of it all by yourself. This is when I started planning my revenge. I noticed after about 3 days they would finally pass out and would sleep for almost 2, and their bag would always be on the bedside table beside POS. I know most would ask, why didn't you call the police or child welfare? Because jail wasn't enough. He might have raped us, but she betrayed us. She turned her back on us. And I wanted revenge and wanted her to suffer like we had. So every chance I got, I would move the bag, just at first, make it look tampered with. Then I started taking it from the bag and placing some on my mom's table. These things alone caused a lot of fighting. They started getting physical. I would keep my sister and I out of sight when this went on, and they never lasted long. Well, I continued to do this over a couple of months, taking more and more, flushing it, or dropping it down the sink, until the last day. The last day I took the whole bag. It was a good amount. They had just re-upped, like they would say. I flushed the whole bag and locked my sister and I in my room and quietly prayed that they didn't realize it was me. I am not sure how long after I did this that everything started, but we had watched like 3 Disney movies before they finally woke up. And then I heard him start yelling about his missing bag. The yelling got louder and more intense. Then I heard the breaking of objects. It was starting to get bad now. I hear my mom go from angry to scared. I hear him hitting her begging him to stop, swearing she didn't touch it. He continues and she continues to beg, begging him to stop. Begging someone to help her, begging like we begged her for so many nights. My sister started asking to leave. She was scared and crying. I opened my window, put my sister outside, and followed. We ran to the neighbor's house. The neighbor called the police and brought us inside, and we watched as the police pulled up to our house, start to walk up to the door, stop for a second, and then started yelling police and kicked the door open. After what felt like forever, we see POS being brought out to the police car. I wait to see my mom follow, but she doesn't. I see an ambulance pull up and the paramedics run in with the gurney. A short time later, I see them rushing back with my mom. I catch a glimpse of her once beautiful face, now looking like ground meat. Her face was solid red. She ended up dying on the way to the hospital. I never planned for this result. I just wanted her to feel the pain we had been feeling for these last years. And I guess in the end, she did. She felt the pain and terror we felt every night for the last 3 years. She just felt it all in one night. Do I feel bad about what I did? No, I don't. If I didn't do what I did, we would have been stuck there. POS was convicted of second-degree murder, possession of illegal substances, explicit material of minors, and 23 counts of aggravated rape, and 17 counts of aggravated rape against a person under 12 years of age. That last one is a death sentence where this all happened. We moved a few states over to be with our dad's parents. We hadn't seen them in almost 4 years. And for the first time in a long time, we actually felt safe. My sister, still to this day, doesn't know what I did, doesn't know that I played a big part in our mom's death. And since we never talk about either of them, it never comes up. We are both happily married now. I have 3 children, she has 2. Both of us are active members of our PTA. No one looking at us today would ever guess the hell we went through, or what I did to get us out of it. As for that edit, it's referencing the first 2 sentences made in the post. The edit says, the reason I put the sentences that are right below this is because I know myself, it sounds completely insane and a few people will say it's fake. Trust, there is no one on this earth that wishes it was fake more than me. If I could go back, I would go to the neighbors sooner, but my reality is that I caused the death of my mom. I had to mature very early. I became like a surrogate to my sister for those last 3 years. I only wanted him to beat her up, he go to jail, and my mom get help. I never wanted her to die.